Welcome to the Steelers by the Lake podcast. My name is James Strong, joined once again by my co-host Cody Tanner. Cody, how are you doing on this Monday?
Pitiful Monday, muddy
Horrible.
Monday, crappy Monday. Listen, God is still good. That's all that matters, baby. Oh, my Atlanta, this was a really crappy game. I don't know what else to say. Before we get too far into this, James, how are you?
I'm doing well, and it's going to be a fun show, I think, today. As much as I know you're not too excited to talk about this, you get a little down in the dumps, a little depressed when the Steelers aren't doing so well. We've got somebody to join us to add a little positivity to this show today, Cody. Why don't you introduce him?
We do. Former athlete himself. He's still an athlete. Don't let him lie to you. Former player for the Erie Express that we used to watch play all the time and have a good time with. My good friend, Jay is here. Jay, welcome in. How are you doing?
Pretty good. How are you guys doing tonight?
Oh, just fancy.
Very good.
Lovely.
Very good. How's that golden leg of yours, Jay? I remember you making like every single field goal that one year.
It's a little rusty right now. I got back in the lab and dust it off. Maybe I'll have to be reserved for Boz if he needs it.
There we go.
Playoffs.
There we go, man.
We got to get you in those pads down there in Pittsburgh. That'd be a fun time.
Yeah, that would be.
Get on Acrisure Stadium's field. I hate that it's called whatever. We're gonna move on from that.
This is kind of off topic, but I remember in the broadcast this weekend they were talking about the history and the tradition of playing Renegade at Acrisure Stadium, and I said that's not an Acrisure Stadium tradition. That's a Heinz Field tradition.
Yep, that's a Heinz Field tradition.
Dude, that started at Three Rivers.
Did it really?
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was a playoff game that I was at, Steelers versus Browns.
Dang, you were there the first time they ever did it. That's crazy.
Yep, Browns were up by 3 touchdowns in that game. Pittsburgh came back to win.
Jeez. Was that a Tim Couch playoff team for the Browns?
I think it was before that.
Dang. Okay, so it was a while back.
A long time ago now, yeah.
Yeah, quick shout out to the backdrop of Jay here. He's got the Penn State Nittany Lions pennant, which is good. They're still in the playoffs. Shout out to them. So we're obviously going to talk about the Steelers and the Bengals Week 18 game. Before we do that, James, do you want to go over the inactives for both Pittsburgh and the Bengals?
Yeah. I had some surprises on this one. Kyle Allen was not a surprise. Obviously, he's back to the number 3 quarterback now that Justin Fields is healthy. Scotty Miller, not a surprise. Dante Jackson, we had suspicion because he was missing practice throughout the week with the back injury. But Isaiah Loudermilk, to me, was a surprise. Dean Lowry, not so much. But what that told me was that there was going to be an emphasis on rotating the pass rushers to try to keep pressure on Joe Burrow, which is exactly what they did. They kept those guys rotating through all game long. On the Bengals side of things, Charlie Jones was out. Chase Brown, their running back, was out. Isaiah Thomas, the linebacker. Offensive tackle Andrew Steuben, wide receiver Jermaine Burton, tight end Tanner McLaughlin, and defensive end Sam Hubbard were all on their injured or inactive list for the game.
Yeah, the Sam Hubbard one being one of the big ones there. Jermaine Burton as well. Not that I've seen a lot of playing time, but that wide receiver. I mean, they had 2 wide receivers and a tight end that were out, and their depth is so. Those are still all backups. I mean, you think about
those
the
are
top 3 guys.
Yeah, those are the back of the roster guys.
But again, not enough inactives to help us in any way, shape, or form. We're going to go over this game. Before we do that and break down the numbers like we always do, James or Jay, where do you guys want to talk about with this game as a whole first? Jay, I'll let you start.
Yeah, I just think that we just really need to see more from like our offensive line specifically coming out of this week. I think that was the biggest thing that was surprising to me was how their play has kind of decreased recently. And if we do that, I don't know. I kind of still like our chances. I kind of like how the way the brackets turned out, the kind of matchups that we get, and we'll see how it all goes.
James?
I'm with Jay on this big time. The offensive line is really, really letting down the offense right now, specifically the left side, which is crazy because I didn't think I'd be talking about Isaac Seumalo in a negative manner at any point this season, but his plays really dropped off. But not to be outdone, Dan Moore has put the worst tape of his career out there at the end of this season, and he was really good like the first 10 weeks or so. He wasn't letting up any pressure. All of a sudden, he can't block anybody, and he might have just given Hendrickson the Defensive Player of the Year with those 3 sacks that he just got in that game. So just atrocious from that side, and it's tough to get any kind of rhythm going when basically one half of your line is just failing over and over.
Yeah, no, I'm with both of you. I think the offensive line is definitely one of the weakest parts of the team. Definitely probably the weakest part on the offense. But you can't help but notice the drops in this game. I mean, George Pickens 1 for 5. I think Pat Freiermuth had a couple drops, and especially that big one on the 4th down, where it would have been. I mean, that would have been the game more than likely. They would have got up. They would have had enough time to spike the ball with maybe 2 or 3 seconds left, potentially even more than that. Just frustrating all around. And my place of frustration doesn't come from this offensive line this game. It comes from the entire team play the last 4 games. I mean, it seems like it's been decreasing and consistently worse and worse. And James, I've gone there time and time again. I'm going to go there again today. The first 8 first downs we had were rushes. The first 8. Tell me we're not going to be easy to understand what's going on or predictable when we keep doing the same thing over and over again. So that aspect of the game frustrates me as someone who sees these high explosive offenses out here doing crazy things and bombing it. And then we do the same thing where we get in a 3rd and 5 situation and we're throwing it 40 yards downfield. It's just frustrating to see us take these deep bombs every time we get a 3rd down rather than take a deep shot on 2nd down. Yeah. That way, if you don't get it, you can go mid-range 3rd down or even run the ball on 3rd and 5. Like I don't want to see that. Trust me. But I would understand that, in my opinion, that would catch a defense off guard more than our running on 1st down or bombing it on 3rd down.
Yeah, there needs to be more variety in it. You can't be too heavy pass. You can't be too heavy run, or it becomes extremely predictable. And that's the issue that we've got going on right now is Arthur Smith is just in a routine of always calling run plays on 1st down. And there were a few successful ones. I mean, Najee Harris had 2 11-yard carries on 1st down. I believe Jalen Warren's 9-yard carry was on a 1st down as well. But the problem is that the runs that go for 2 or 3 yards, then it kept on getting followed up by an incomplete pass on 2nd down. And now you're in 3rd and long.
Yep.
So with the extremely low completion percentage these last few weeks, it's making it darn near impossible to establish and continue a drive because you have to be able to not just get a 1st down, but get multiple to get into scoring range. We showed early in the season that all you need to do is get like 3 or 4 1st downs, and you're in range for Chris Boswell, and you can win a lot of games off of 6 field goals. This game, you would have been a point short, but one more field goal would have been enough to do it. And at any point in time, there were plays that were left out on the field, whether it be a drop from George Pickens, which was completely uncharacteristic of him, and his hands were very unreliable in this game. Pat Freiermuth, the most reliable hands on the team, drops one on the final play for the offense. Calvin Austin got involved in things and dropped one. It was just a very poor performance by the wide receiver unit at the worst time.
Yep.
And I felt like the pocket presence with Russ, it's tough because I hate how he scrambles and goes straight back because it eliminates all the pass blocking angles for the offensive line. But at the same point in time, they're not holding up at all. So he's running for his life before he can even get to a 3-second count. And then the middle of the field's out because he's running to one side or the other, and all he can do is either dump it off or bomb it deep. And that's kind of what's eliminating the middle of the field options is they're not able to get in rhythm because the pressure is so quick because the guys are getting beat so fast.
Yeah. Yeah, I really wish they'd honestly, I mean, we talked about it time and time again. Either keep a running back in to help block or have a tight end chip or do something to assist. And Dan Moore, like you said, has just, I don't even want to say subtly declined. It's been pretty drastic pretty quickly, and it's been bad. So I don't know what this offense needs to do. I hope that there's changes that are made before playoffs, because I know that you both are optimistic, and we'll get to that here shortly. I don't know how you can go out and play the way that we just did offensive line wise and put up any more points than what we just did. And you're going to need to put up more points to beat Baltimore this time, I think. But we'll get to that another time.
Yeah, I mean, if I can hop in here real quick. I think, like, ultimately, the more I looked at this game, though, the more optimistic I got, because when I was thinking about, we just faced against a division rival who is the hottest team in the league, and we basically shut down their offense. And if it wasn't for our number one receiver and our left tackle having the worst games of their career at the worst possible time, we probably win. So if we can just count on them regressing or progressing towards the usual standard of play that we've come to expect from them, we probably have a good path to success, because some of those drops, like Pickens went from having the best contested catch percentage last season to, I don't even know where he is on the list this year, but it's definitely not towards the top. And Dan Moore, he was one of the more secure parts of this offensive line heading into the year, and he's just, like you said, he's just fallen off a cliff in his production. So,
yeah. I mean, let's hop into this game. Let's talk about it. Obviously, we go offensive line first, offensive side of the ball first. Russell Wilson, probably the worst game he's had as a Pittsburgh Steeler, if not pretty close. And that's not from a performance standpoint, I don't think. I think he had a bad game performance-wise, but the 4 sacks for the negative 29 yards is a massive hit. He didn't have a turnover, which is huge. He didn't throw an interception or fumble and lose the ball. But 17 of 31 isn't good, and for 148 yards before the loss of 29 is just not enough in any kind of football to win a game. I'm very curious the last time a quarterback played in an AFC divisional game and threw for less than 200 yards and won. I'd be really curious to see when that was. And if anything, it was Lamar Jackson. He's running the ball against Cleveland or something. Who knows? There's a chance of that, I suppose. But overall, I mean, he had a QBR of 31.5 and a QB rating of 78.4. And I don't want to put all the blame on Russell, but Russell did not have a good game with sense, like pocket sense, feeling the pressure, scrambling out, throwing the ball away. A lot of different things happened in this. James, you and I talked about when it happened in the moment late in that last drive to try and win the game. He scrambles for like a gain of 4 yards on one play. Yes, you say he should have thrown the ball away, which I agree 110%. But also the coaching staff didn't call a timeout there when I felt that they really, really needed one in that situation to kind of get their wits together. I understand it's the last timeout, but I'd rather have the time to prepare a plan that could work than quickly get to the ball and have a miscue or something bad happen, which kind of is what happened. But that's just my opinion. I thought that Russell's football IQ was not shown on display this game. What do you guys think?
I think there were moments where the pressure got to him for sure. I hated that he chose to scramble for only 3 or 4 yards in that moment, full well knowing he wasn't going to be able to stop the clock. And there was a lot of time left at that point. There was like 50 seconds left on the clock. And there was plenty of time to get down the field. They didn't need 3 or 4 yards. They needed the clock to be stopped. So if he didn't have somebody they could take a shot at, throwing it away would have been a better move, in my opinion, because he needed to protect that timeout. I understand not using it there because you're trying to save it so that you can call that last second timeout with 1 second left on the clock to get Chris Boswell out there, because you know that anything inside of 60 yards is basically automatic for Chris. So you're trying to hang on to that tight end, that timeout, that last one, as long as you possibly can to get just to where it's a 59-yarder, So I get the concept of it. It's just frustrating because it shouldn't have gotten to that point, and it was poor decisions making that happen.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't even consider the time management aspect of that last couple of plays. I think, I've been watching a lot of the Manning cast or whatever on the Monday nights that they do, and they talk a lot about calling 2 plays in the huddle in those end-of-game scenarios. And I wonder if you call the timeout earlier, like you guys are talking about, if you can do that, where you can have two plays. Like if the first one doesn't work, this is what we're running. And if the first one does work, this is what we're running for the second play. So like almost you can save the time to even communicate that between the players. And that's just almost like an extra 5 to 10 seconds that we didn't have if you do it that way. Because you can call more plays in the huddle when you have the full minute timeout to do so.
Yep.
But as far as like Russ's play, like if you add on those 4 or 5 drops, though, that's 4 or 5 drops for like 60, 70 yards. And if
easily,
you know, that's like 21 completions for like 250 yards. And we're going to take that, you know? So I feel like there's 1 or 2 bad throws, specifically that one out and up to Pickens where he threw it over the outside shoulder and it should have been over the inside shoulder. That really sticks out as a missed opportunity on his part. But other than that, I think it was more of like the receivers not making plays for him than him not navigating the ball placement and some of those aspects, in my opinion.
No, I'm with you on that.
I didn't think there were a lot of bad throws in this game. Like you mentioned, that one to Pickens late in the game, that was a frustrating one because, man, Pickens had his guy smoked.
Yeah.
That's a big, big play. But a lot of those were, you know, the deep one to Calvin Austin that he was unable to come up with would have been another 30-yard gain or more. That throw to Freiermuth at the end of the game, you can't tell me that doesn't end up a good 20 or 25-yard gain because that's exactly where he was heading with that. There was nobody around him. And the other ones to Pickens as well, he's either on the run or on the sideline, and big yards were going to happen. Just got to come down with the ball. So that's part of why I'm not as pessimistic following this game as I have been on some of these previous ones, because A, it was actually close. B, we should actually be kind of proud of the defense in this game, because this is the first time that Joe Burrow didn't have 3 touchdown passes in like 7 or 8 weeks. He's had 3 touchdown passes in every game to close out this season, and it's been a while since he didn't have that. We held that offense to 19 points, and that's including them having some really short fields off of a big kick return and off of a fumbled punt return by Calvin Austin III. So they didn't even have to go long distances on a few of those drives, and the defense still held up. So I feel like there's a lot of positives on the defensive side. Just the offense, just in general, just wasn't very good in this game.
Yeah, one thing that I do want to say, we talked about, I made it sound like Russell had a really bad game, and I think I'm just frustrated overall with the team's performance, and the quarterback always gets a lot of that hit. Russell had a phenomenal throw to end the first quarter to Mike Williams that Mike Williams was able to hang on to and get his toes down. Huge shot. Like, this is another frustration, I think. Mike Williams is a target. Why have we not seen him get targeted more? Like, I don't understand why Mike Williams isn't out there. I don't understand why we're not targeting Darnell and Pat more. There's just a lot of Darnell at all. I mean, realistically, we were talking about this earlier, and we'll do a breakdown after the season. But, I mean, James, catches on the year, guess how many Darnell had?
I'm going to go with 11.
19. Which
19 on the year.
Which is still a lot. But 19 for 200 yards and a touchdown.
And what's he have in the last 5 weeks? Like 1, right?
Yeah.
Because he has nothing in this game, and it's like at least 3 or 4 of these last games I've been saying, why was there not even a ball thrown his direction?
Darnell
didn't.
Darnell in the last 5 weeks was targeted 2 times for 1 catch.
Yeah, that's insane. When you're trying to be more physical than the other team, why would you not throw it to your most physical offensive weapon?
Yep. The 3 games prior to the last 5, 4 targets, 2 catches for 42 yards, 3 targets for 3 catches for 14 yards. That's just play calling, not sending them downfield, but he caught the ball all times. And then the last time when we beat Cincinnati, he was 1 for 1 for 10 yards. That's a first down. Just saying. Like, the guy falls forward, he gets you 6 yards. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
That we're not utilizing these people, and especially with Arthur Smith coming in from Atlanta and being known as the guy that was going to do these things with tight ends, and then not, like, at this point I got to ask the question, is it because Russell can't see the middle of the field, or is it something else? I don't know what the problems are that we're having with getting the balls to the tight ends or whatever, but it just feels like they're not even being like they're not even in the play call or not even in the play design. So, Jay, someone who has played football more recently than us, what do you think about this offensive play calling?
I think it's overall generally pretty good. I think it's more of an execution thing than like a play calling thing. Specifically in this last game, like we talked about with some of the drops and some of the blocking assignments individually. But I just think like it's tough when you have a quarterback who, even in Seattle, they never had a great tight end. They had Jimmy Graham for a couple years, but like it's not something that traditionally Russell likes to use. And since that is most of where our talent is on the offensive side of the ball, it's not the perfect marriage. We did try to get him some of those bigger physical receivers that he likes on the outside with the Mike Williams trade. And Van Jefferson is kind of like that, but he's more of just like a veteran, do it all, like does the little things, not really splash plays at this point in his career. But yeah, I think like when you realize that your talent lies with your tight ends, specifically in their run blocking and with your running backs, as a play caller, you want to lean on what you're more comfortable in, like not limiting negative plays. The things that kill the offense more than anything is limiting negative plays. And so if you can go with a 1 yard run, sometimes that's worse, or sometimes that feels better than an incomplete pass on first down, just because the ball is incrementally moving down the field. And so like when we have running backs like Najee and and stuff like that Jaylen Warren, I think it's just he feels like he has to get all of the backs involved before he gets anyone else involved, and sometimes that limits him early in games before we need to spread it out later on when the game gets more out of reach or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. You guys want to move to the running back room now that we're talking about him?
Yeah, we might as well go there. I felt like early in the game, Najee had some good success, and then that got stomped down pretty fast.
Yeah.
And then it was mostly not successful the rest of the game. Jaylen Warren had 1 9-yard carry, which means that the rest of the day he had 5 carries for 12 yards. Yep. So that's not fantastic. And I'm kind of sick of seeing the inclusion of Cordarrelle Patterson for no good reason.
Agreed.
He's not giving you really anything positive on the field anymore. In fact, he had a holding penalty that called back a play in this game. Yep. He can't even pass block well at this point. He's casually trotting out of the end zone on kick returns. He's not effective running the ball. He can't pass block. He's not a wide receiver. Dude's just past his prime. He's not even a jack of all trades. He's just somebody who knows how to do a lot of things and used to be good at doing them, but it isn't anymore.
Yeah. No, I agree. Najee, even if you take away I think he had an 11-yard run and a 10-yard run in this game.
2 11-yard runs.
2 11-yard runs. So if you take those 2 runs away, he had 10 carries for 14 yards. Like, it's not good. It's not good at all to see this style of running, especially in a divisional game. You want to see us go out and be able to pound the ball in these games, and that's coming from someone who doesn't want to see us pound the ball. I want to see us throw the ball downfield. I want to see us put up 30 points in a game because that's what the teams that are consistently winning in the NFL are doing nowadays. And so there's a lot of frustration that I'm having from a standpoint of I see the talent on our team. I know you guys do too. We talked about the tight ends, the big wide receivers outside. George having all the freaking drops this game, 5 drops. Van Jefferson even had a drop that hit him right in the chest on this game. Just really, really frustrating. And I'm hoping that we can get something going next week. And I don't know what the problem is. If it's a mental thing, if the team is just not all there, I don't know. If they're beating themselves up over the last 3 games that it played into this game, I don't know what's happening because it doesn't make sense to me. These guys are too talented, especially George and Pat. Pat having the drop on that 4th down is crazy to me. But just hoping they can, turn around and get something going. Again, we talked about Najee's number, Jalen's numbers. Russell had 4 rushes for 16 yards. And then Patterson had that 1 rush for 1 yard late in the game, a little pitch handoff thing. I think more than anything, what frustrates me that happens early in these games is the running on first down, and then we do a quick little like screenplay to Calvin Austin or George Pickens, and it's like I hate plays that aren't designed to push the ball downfield because we're not getting yards, which is frustrating. But I don't know if you guys have anything else you want to add to that. I'm just going on rants right now because I'm so frustrated.
No, you're good, man. And like, to me, a screenplay is not a bad call, but just because it's called doesn't mean you have to throw it to the screen. So the whole point of a wide receiver screen is that you have a mismatch there that you can take advantage of. If there's two defenders right up on the line and you still throw the wide receiver screen and there's only one guy trying to block them both, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
The math doesn't math. It will not work. It doesn't matter how much of a jitterbug you have back there. It could be Dante Hall catching the ball, and he's not going to make it work because you just don't have it. The numbers aren't there. The whole point is when you have one guy up on the line and one back 10 yards off, so now the receiver has somewhere to go. So in that situation, there's at least two or three other receivers. You got to go to somebody else or you got to throw it away. Like, There's no point in doing that. You're just taking away from any momentum that you have. Did that do George any good catching that ball? No, because he dropped everyone after that. If anything, it might have discouraged him to have a ball forced to him in a situation where he knew the chances of him being successful were not good. That might have actually gotten in his head.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm cool with wide receiver screens, but you just can't force it there just because that's the play call. There are other options in a wide receiver screen. There's always somebody on the backside running a route. There's always a tight end on the other side running a route. There's somebody that's available somewhere else that you can throw the ball to. And if it's not there, you can't force it.
Did you guys think that on that first screen to Pickens that it was a late hit?
I don't remember it well enough, honestly.
Yeah, somebody hit him like 4 yards out of bounds.
Oh, never mind. I remember that now. I do.
Yeah, I was furious. I'm glad you brought it up because and that's part of it too, is like the guy takes a very clear cheap shot well after the play is over, way out of bounds. George looks at the refs like, what? And it makes it look like there's an agenda versus him. And that might have got into his head too.
That's fair.
I'd rather you throw a slant to him. Throw a freaking 6-yard slant and let him dodge a middle linebacker. I'd rather that than a wide receiver screen.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen some of these guys that we've hit on with the drafts. We've seen their ability to make plays with slants and quick passes like that. We had it with Santonio Holmes. We beat the Bengals in overtime on a quick slant.
George has done that.
George has done that. Yeah. AB
hit him on
did
a quick
that.
slant. He takes it 80 yards. Like
Emmanuel Sanders did it before he went to Denver. Like
where are the slants in this offense?
I don't think they exist. And I think that and here's the honest truth about that. Maybe it doesn't work because when they snap the ball and the linemen stand up, Russell can't see what the middle linebacker's doing. He can't see if that middle linebacker's fading over to that slant or not. Maybe we literally can't run that play, which would really, really suck. There's things that I haven't processed that I understand, like with Russell being shorter. He's what, 5'10"?
Yeah, 5'10" or 5'11", one of the two.
The offensive linemen at the smallest are 6'3", 6'4". Like he can't see what those middle linebackers are doing, and that's very, very, very unfortunate. And I'm hoping the play calling for this next game utilizes Justin Fields a little bit more. I don't care if he's running every single time he's in there. I really don't care. I just hope that we have to give somebody other looks, so they have to prepare differently for that. Something else I forgot about that I want to bring up just briefly to kind of get your guys' input. That first and fourth, or that second, or that third and short, and that 4th and 1 that we went for and didn't get. Like James messaged me during the game, like, why do you not have a fullback in that situation? Yeah. All I'm thinking about is why do you not have somebody pushing? I don't give it to the fullback, let the the running back push the pile. I don't understand the play call. I don't understand the design. There's too many other ways to do this well in the NFL for us to be failing at 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1.
And how do you fail on a QB sneak on 3rd and 1 when there's nobody in either A gap? Like Russ literally hugged the ground, which means as soon as anybody touches him, he's down. All he has to do is stay on his feet. It's the easiest conversion he's got. Like, it blows my mind in situations like that. But I get that Connor Hayward is not an effective goal line fullback because he's just not big enough. That's what you have Michael Pruitt on the team for. If these guys can't do it, put Mark Robinson back there. I guarantee you he blows somebody up and opens up a hole. Dude's a former running back, and he loves hitting people. Yep. Let him play fullback and goal line. He'll make it happen.
I don't like the thought of putting Jalen back there on 4th and 1. Jalen's.
It should have been Najee. Yeah.
It should have been Najee. Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know. I just wasn't thinking about that one.
Especially without a fullback in there. Jalen can play off the fullback a little bit more, I think, than Najee can. But if you're just going to go
straight
solo, yeah. and most of I've had an old coach that always used to say that the great teams can always pick up a 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1. And like those are the plays that, like, if you can't trust your own mind to get that for you, then you're probably not going to win too many games. And I think that's another thing that stood out to me for the O-line, that like we've routinely these last couple of weeks not been able to pick up those short yardage plays.
Yeah.
So it's just something schematically that I think needs to be adjusted moving forward, because we will have those plays in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So,
and the offense has such a huge advantage in a 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1 situation that you can't just be trotting out Scotty Miller and putting him on the end of the line of scrimmage and not even having him run a route. Like, some of the personnel decisions in these just drive me nuts.
I'm gonna bring this up just for a second to show you guys, and if you guys are listening on any kind of podcast and not watching on YouTube, I apologize. I want to look at this 3rd and 1 situation here and just point out how wide open George Pickens is for a 1-yard gain here. Not only that, but then when you watch this play out and you look at it, I have Mason McCormick 2 yards downfield blocking nobody. Zach Frazier sideways trying to block somebody. And then even you have Jalen Warren in there trying to push somebody. Like, why is Jalen Warren in there on the line blocking? I don't understand the play call, the execution at all. And then even when you look at the 4th down and 1.
And real quick on that, before we move past that 3rd down, Cody, the first thing that you mentioned on that was Mason McCormick surging downfield. What that tells me is there's a wide open hole behind the right guard. Follow him.
Yep.
That means Russ didn't read it correctly. He just buried his head and dove. If you would have looked for a second and seen Mason McCormick charging downfield, just follow him. He's got a 5-yard gain if he goes behind Mason McCormick on that play.
And I think that
100%.
extends from the last few weeks. We've failed these same sort of scenarios, and Russ doesn't trust the guys in front of him to get that. So he puts his head down right away, and he's not looking to read the hole. He's just looking to bury himself in there instead of keeping his eyes up. And I think that extends from just a lack of trust. So that's an overall, team issue.
Yeah. And then giant hole. And then when we move to the 4th and 1, the frustrating part here for me is, again, obviously we talked about no tight end, but tell me what stands out when I get just a second in this. What do you see right there?
A backside corner coming completely untouched.
Backside corner, and look at one of our offensive line is literally on the defensive side of the ball right now.
So he missed on his block.
Blocking nobody, and guess who it is? Dan Moore.
Yeah. Yep. And it was his guy that made the tackle. I saw a clip of this from the All-22, and he just completely whiffs, and it's his linebacker that he should have blocked that makes the play.
Yep.
So just, and that's what I was talking about with, it's not just Dan Moore being awful in pass blocking. Right now, he's really bad in run blocking too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just wildly unfortunate to see. I mean, Jay, like you said, the whatever coach said that is spot on. If you can't convert 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1, if you don't get 2 options or 2 chances to go 1 yard and can't do that, what are you doing as a football team? What are you doing as a play caller? What are you doing in life? That's wild to me as a fan of football and as someone who used to play and everything. Like, I could scheme up 13 different ways right now in 5 minutes to gain that 1 yard, and none of them would have looked like that.
With a wide receiver tight to the formation on the left, that's like, okay.
Throw Keanu Benton in there.
Yeah.
Like, throw Keanu Benton. Remember when we got to see Henry Mondo block for a touchdown?
I loved Henry Mondo as a fullback. He was incredible at it, man. Like, it's such an underrated thing to be able to put a backup defensive lineman or offensive lineman who's got a little burst back there. Maybe they try that with Logan Lee. He might be quick enough to do that. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. If he comes off this IR here in the next few weeks, we'll see what happens. I didn't mean to take us away from discussing what I just saw those plays and I had to talk about it, while we were there.
Yeah. And even on those, like we were talking about with the play calling, it still comes down to an execution thing because we noticed the hole was there on the third down. So it doesn't matter what play is called. If they're not going to run the play,
it does.
Like,
and I guess that's even where it's more frustrating is like, maybe I'm more aggressive towards Arthur Smith than I need to, but at the same time, my head tells me we've been struggling with these things for how many weeks now? Mm-hmm. At some point, it needs to fall on the coach to make a change, whether that's personnel or play call. Hey, we've run this play a couple times. It doesn't work that often. Let's try it again. No, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, do something else. And even from a football stance, not processing our team or Arthur Smith or who we have or execution, why you're not using a fullback or a lead blocker in those situations and why you're using the smallest running back on the team doesn't make sense to me.
And if you're going to be in that formation with a single wide receiver, the wide receiver needs to be all the way to the sideline to pull a corner away and possibly a safety as well to even out the numbers. Having him tight to the formation like that is just an advantage to the defense because it's somebody who's not a highly capable blocker out there in a goal line situation. Schematically, it's a dumb thing to do.
Yeah. Let's transition to the wide receiver room and tight end room. Talk some of these guys because, quite frankly, this is like as much as the drops were there. This is a lone highlight, I think, for the team. Is Pat Freiermuth's 8 catches for 85 yards, 10.6 average and a touchdown. Mike Williams, the 1 catch that we talked about already on the sideline, 1 for 25. Najee Harris had 4 catches for 20 yards. Van Jefferson, 3 for 18. And then that's about it. George had 1 catch for 0 yards. Pat Freiermuth is the highlight of this offense.
He was the MVP of the offense on this game. And that's why I'm not too mad at him about the drop at the end of the game. Obviously, I wanted him to catch it. But he's been consistently the best weapon a lot of this year. Him and George Pickens have carried the offense. And George just didn't help in this game. So it was up to Pat to carry him. And there's only so much one guy can do when everybody else is really kind of giving you bare minimum results.
Yep. Jay, anything else to add to this wide receiver group?
Yeah, I was really happy to see the involvement that we got with Freiermuth. And it's just, I wonder if he almost overthought his role at the end of the game. And it was more of like trying to not make a mistake instead of just being confident in his ability to execute like he has all game. When I wonder if it was almost like a period where he was like, I'm the only one making plays. If no one else makes this play, like if I don't make this play, no one else is going to make it, instead of just going out there and doing his job like he had routinely before then. And he kind of, because he didn't attack the catch like he had been all game. He tried to let it get into his body. And that was just so anti what we'd seen from him previously up until that point that it was
No, I agree. I almost think he was processing getting down too, like making sure there's so many things going in your head at that moment. I have to catch the ball. I have to make sure I get the first down, and then I have to go down with enough time for us to go for this field goal. I think those things were probably in his head.
I think you're right, and he was probably also thinking, where are the defenders around me? Because I've got to get to a certain point on this field for it to be in field goal range. You know what I mean? If he catches it right there at the 49-yard line, that's not good enough. It's not in Boswell range yet, and he knows that. So he's not only got to catch it, he's got to go get another 5 to 10 yards to get in range, and he knows that. So he's thinking, look, his head's kind of downfield already. I think he's thinking about the run after the catch on that, and he can't blame him because he knows the game's on the line.
Yep. It was very, very close. And I hope that he's not beating himself up too much about that because
he shouldn't. He's the only reason we were in that game.
Yeah. So, real unfortunate for Pat, but again, hoping to get him just as equally involved next week, and maybe even some Darnell and some more Mike Williams, and hopefully George can have a little bit better of a game next week as well. Offensive line, I feel like we already beat up enough. Unless you guys want to go there again.
Nope, I'm done with them, man. Like I think the only hope of a better performance is Troy Fautanu coming back from IR. So if we hear something about that this week, if they open the 21-day window, which they can if he's healthy enough, then there's hope. Otherwise, I don't know who you're gonna swap out, especially if Mason McCormick can't go because usually Spencer Anderson's the next tackle up. Yep. So he's going to have to play guard, which puts you next man down the list on offensive tackle. And yeah, I don't know that I like that option.
No, it's not going to be a good option at all. Let's talk defensive line here. I thought it was a very good game from Keanu Benton. Sack, tackle for loss, 5 tackles on the game. He also had a QB hit registered outside of that. I thought he played very, very well in run stopping and stuffing some holes. A lot of runs didn't run his way. They ran mostly outside. It felt like most of the game. But I was very impressed with Keanu Benton. I was a little frustrated with the lack of plays from Montravius Adams, and Cam Hayward had probably the best game of his career with pass breakups.
Yep, brought himself to 11 on the season, 11 pass deflections, which is absolutely unheard of. I think that put him right up there with J.J. Watt with the highest ever recorded by a defensive lineman in a single season. So heck of a performance by Cam. Understand he was under the weather too. He was playing with the flu in that game. So very impressed with Keanu Benton. He actually gave Pittsburgh a chance at the end of the game by getting that sack that was able to finish that drive off. Give Pittsburgh the ball back again and a chance to try to win the game. So you got to love seeing him come through in the clutch because usually that's the moment where we get something from TJ Watt or Alex Highsmith or Nick Herbig or Cam Hayward to see Keanu Benton filling into that clutch role. That's huge because we've been talking a lot about who's going to step up, who's going to carry the torch. Cam's like 35 or 36 years old now. We really need another defensive lineman to step up and start carrying the torch here. Yep. And I think you might need 2 more at this stage in the game. But it has to have you optimistic about those guys on the defensive front there. And there are a few people that had some pretty decent games in this game on the defense. Go ahead, Cody.
That I just wanted to tell you that puts him tied for 4th all time with most pass deflections in a season. So the only one's better than him is J.J. Watt with 16 in 2012, Carlos Dunlap in 2016 with 15, Emmanuel Ogbah with 12 in 2021, and then he's tied with Cameron Jordan with 11, Greg Hardy with 11, Jared Allen with 11, and Jason Taylor did it twice with 11, and then also Simeon Rice in 11. So very high caliber people he's there listed with.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think sometimes even like at the national media, they don't think about him. Like obviously he gets the recognition from the Pro Bowl voters and from the All Pro voters and things like that. But even like have you heard Cam Hayward in a Jason Taylor conversation ever?
Nope. Never.
So I think that game he played on a national stage really solidified his deserving of that another Pro Bowl, and so that was really nice to see that he played up to the recognition that he'd already received. And then also I instantly thought of you, James, when Keanu Benton made that play at the end there because it's nice to see when you're younger, bigger, stronger, more athletic players make big, strong, athletic plays in key moments, and we kind of had been missing that from him. So that was awesome that he was able to step in and make that play when we needed him most.
Heck yeah, man. He's been such an exciting guy to watch. He's just been so close so many times. Yeah. And for him to get that foot and get just enough of him to get down, man, I jumped off my couch when he got that sack. I won't lie.
Yeah. And I almost feel like part of it is he's playing out of position a little bit. And I know you guys, have kind of talked a little bit about that he's more of like a natural 3 technique that they wanted to bulk up to move down to that nose, but we'll see if what they do in the draft and things like that to take care of that. But so it was nice to see him step into that role.
Yeah,
I'll tell you other guys that were really, really physical in this game, and this is going to jump in a completely different direction.
That's fine.
Corey Trice
Yep.
As much as Corey gave up some catches in this game, when he got his hands on receivers, he was way more physical than the receivers were. And these are not small guys in Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And he outmuscled them every time he got his hands on them. So I thought that, Corey probably a few times was kind of victimized by playing against what may be the best wide receiver in the entire NFL for a large portion of this game. But I think he showed good toughness in the game and never really got way out of position. He was almost always within position to get a tackle right after the catch or attempt to try to deflect it at least. So I really loved the physicality that we saw out of Corey Trice in this game.
Yeah. Do you want to skip linebackers and go to the corners and safeties?
Don't matter to me.
We already did it. Yeah. I mean, Corey Trice had a good game with his physicality. It still would like to see him get some more pass breakups. Let me clarify, any pass breakups. Joey Porter had 6 tackles on the game, 1 pass deflection. Cameron Sutton, just quiet again. I guess I expected more out of him. It's tough because he obviously didn't play the first half of the season. And so you don't know what kind of performance he's going to come out and have with sitting that bit. He also has whatever might be lingering from the personal side of things with him having a warrant out for his arrest in Detroit. Who knows what was going on there. I just would have liked to have seen more from him. And then same thing from Beanie Bishop. He had a good pass breakup. But other than that, nothing else.
Whoa. How are you going to say that? He got an interception in this game.
Excuse me. You're right. I forgot about that. That was okay. I did forget about that because that was a very, very, very impressive catch. It's not. Yeah, I forgot about that. Shout out to Patrick Queen on that play too.
Absolutely, Patrick, and that's a shout out to, like, he got interviewed after the game and was talking about that's something that they noticed schematically that was a tendency based off of formation and film study. So the coaching staff pointed that out. He noticed it in the game. He was able to jump the route, nearly pick it off himself, and then Beanie Bishop with just a tremendous diving catch to end that drive and give Pittsburgh another opportunity with the football. So very quietly, Beanie Bishop ended up with 4 interceptions on the season with not a lot of playing time, and I think he's earned a lot more playing time. I was really surprised on how much Cam Sutton blitzed in this game. I saw him blitzing against like guards and tackles on a regular basis, just one-on-one trying to pass rush against him. And I just feel like that, like if you're going to blitz a corner, he needs to be coming around the edge, not up the middle against a guard or a center or a tackle. That's pretty goofy.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to go safeties? Oh, Jay's talking. Go ahead, Jay.
One thing that stuck out to me with the DBs though is we didn't really see many of the alignment issues that had been plaguing us the last few weeks. It seemed like you noticed a couple of times where like Minka from the back end was like redirecting people and like having that communication that had been missing at times because there'd been those whispers coming out of the locker room that some guys weren't aligned all correctly and things like that. And I think Minka took that on himself as the leader, but that can see everything. And just, you could tell like sometimes guys were getting frustrated with like him calling them out in the middle of the play that they were out of position, but then they weren't out of position and then they made a play. So I think just continuing to, work on that and being that leader, to help that. And like also schematically with the corners, I really like the decision to primarily have Trice on Chase and also have Porter on Higgins, because I think like Trice is more of that raw athlete, just like Chase is, whereas like Higgins has the technique that Porter can fight against. And so I think it was a good matchup. Well, and like neither of them beat us. We didn't let those 2 wide receivers on the outside beat us. If anyone in the passing game beat us, it was the tight end, which is, a whole different scenario. But I really like schematically how we aligned our corners and the responsibilities that we gave them in that aspect as well.
Yeah, I'm with you, Jay. Like the communication was way better. I've noticed multiple times in this game where typically you would see somebody goes in motion and you'll see a defender point, right? He's like, hey, now it's yours. The first person would point and then the next guy and then the next guy. The whole way across the defense, you'd see 4 or 5 people all passing the communication. And it was almost like, we don't care if you know offensively what we're doing. we're going to make abundantly clear that each other knows exactly where we're supposed to be and over communicate rather than take any chance of there being a miscommunication or a lack of communication. So you're 100% right on that. I think that was fixed very well. And Joey Porter, I felt like really showed his value in this game because once T. Higgins went out and then he went over to Jamar Chase, the Bengals offense completely stopped at that point. They couldn't do anything once Higgins was out and Porter was on Chase. It was curtains, and that's when Pittsburgh started to come back in this game.
Yeah. It's tough because I know that they still made some good plays. Jamar Chase had a really good catch on the sideline. T. Higgins made a couple plays, but like you're not going to shut him down completely.
No.
And so they did do a good job, especially when you process the targets. There's a lot that I think I would have liked our secondary to do better. But again, it's processing, limiting the success rate they have compared to how much they've been successful in the past. I do think we did a good job against that. It was really nice to have Deshaun Elliott back. I remember at one point, my buddy Dylan Sonny and I and another friend, Eric Holcomb, and another buddy James were all watching it at the hotel bar. And the one play happened where there was a quick screenplay or a running back ran outside. I can't remember exactly what. No, it was a screenplay to a wide receiver, I think. And Deshaun Elliott came up and nailed him. And I was like, Deshaun's back in. Found him. Like you always find him making those big hits and stuff. I thought Deshaun had a really good game with 8 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, which was on that play. You also had Minka with 3 tackles. Minka making a Pro Bowl is weird, but I know that it's a popularity thing to some extent. And he doesn't make plays because people don't go throw the ball near him. People don't go near him. Like they just stay away from him. So good game from the safety room.
I think another thing that's underrated from a schematic standpoint with Minka is a lot of teams in the NFL do a standard too high look in passing situations now to eliminate those things. And we don't a lot of the times. We just trust Minka to just be that center field over top of literally everything that goes downfield and not having to put a second safety deep a lot of the time when other teams are forced to, I think gives us a lot more ability to do different things on the back end. And I think that's an undervalued aspect of why he's so valued apart from like the stats and some of the more obvious things that we can see.
Yep. You guys want to go linebackers now?
Yeah. The outside linebacker room, I'm going to go there first. We got some nice pressure from this unit. They kept them rotating throughout the game. And Preston Smith came through with one. Nick Herbig came through with one. And it was just a constant pressure coming from these guys. Obviously, we would have liked to see some more out of TJ Watt. He did have yet another strip sack that got called back due to a penalty that had absolutely nothing to do with the play. That's got to be like 4 or 5 of them on the season now, which is just discouraging knowing that he's finishing the year with like 10.5, 11 sacks. The leader's got 17. He easily could have had 15 or 16, but he had so many called back this year. And most of them that were called back were strip sacks too. So then you're talking damn near double digits on strip sacks because I think he ended the season with like 6 or 7 forced fumbles on the season. So just discouraging to see that happen over and over. But it was a good group pressuring on Joe Burrow in this game, with even Patrick Queen and Keanu Benton getting involved. So,
do you want to know what was very crazy about this game from the outside linebacker group?
Go for it.
TJ Watt didn't register a stat.
Wow.
Not one.
He did. They just took it away with a dumb holding penalty.
I mean, that's fair, but like even outside of that, the fact that he wasn't involved is just insane to me. And maybe there's an aspect of that is what led to them only putting 19 points up. Maybe they were limited with what they could do. There's a lot of hidden stats like that in a lot of sports, but especially football. Really, really interested to go back and watch some tape on this to see what really happened and how he just had no stats at all.
It was a ultimate quick release game. And pretty much everyone's been doing that against Pittsburgh. The time to throw has been lower in their games versus Pittsburgh than all their other games. When you look at like the last 4 or 5 weeks, it was very consistent where the quarterback on that team was getting it out a good half second faster than they were in other games. So they know not to hold on to the ball, or Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt are going to get home against them.
Yeah.
So I think it's just good momentum going into the playoffs to get all these other guys that are not as highly involved in getting after the quarterback.
Yeah, let's talk about that Preston Smith sack real quick. And you talk about hidden stats. Watch TJ on this play. Maybe. If I can remember what button to push. TJ has a great get off on this snap where, the ball is snapped and TJ's there. TJ's moving, puts some outside pressure, forces him up into Preston Smith. So,
and that's what I've been barking about all year long with not getting enough push from the interior on guys not named Cam Hayward. It looks like Larry Ogunjobi's the other guy. Larry doesn't get any push, but Preston Smith does. Yep. That's a 265-pound outside linebacker basically playing defensive tackle, rush tackle, and he gets enough push to make it happen. You don't need to necessarily drive your guy back 3 or 4 yards, but you do need to drive him back a couple yards so that when that pressure comes up the arc, they have to step forward, and then they step forward, they step right into your arms.
Yep.
Yeah, I was really happy to see the playing time that Preston Smith got in this game. I'd been asking for a couple weeks now for him to get more of a role. He's our biggest, strongest, most physical outside backer, and he's our best run defender in that group and on a down-to-down basis. And he just was absent from the field in a majority of scenarios where I think he could have been used. And, he just made a ton of key plays in this one that really stood out as, why he should be on the field more and why that trade should be used to its full extent.
I wonder if they utilize him more in that defensive line position next game to be some kind of kryptonite against the mobility of Lamar Jackson, because I don't think we've seen that a whole lot.
A little bit on the season, but it's most effective in a 3rd and long situation because the run is basically out of the equation at that point.
Yeah. Inside linebackers, obviously, we talked about Patrick Queen making that good pass deflection. He also had a sack on this game, hit the quarterback twice, and then Peyton Wilson was all over the field this game. Unfortunately, always felt like he was getting to the play after the fact, but he did list 10 tackles, 8 solo by himself. Landon Roberts, only 2 tackles on the game. I thought the middle linebacker crew performed well, mostly because of PQ. On this game, I felt like a lot of times he was all over the place getting involved. My buddy Dylan was commenting on it a lot. I think he's mad with how this season has gone towards the end of the year. He's really frustrated with it, and it's coming out in his play style, which I like.
Also, shout out to Mark Robinson, had another monster hit on special teams.
Yeah,
this is consistently happening every single week. He is lighting up a return man, whether it's on punt coverage or kick coverage. And I keep on saying I don't think Tyler Matakevich is long for this roster. If Cole Holcomb is healthy enough to come back in this postseason, I think they make room by cutting Tyler Matakevich, and Mark Robinson just takes over his role.
Fair. I could see it. I could definitely see that. You want to move to special teams?
Let's do it.
Listen, before we talk about special teams, we are going to talk about special places. I'm going to use this opportunity to hop in and talk about the Edinburgh Hotel Bar. If you haven't heard of it, support for Steelers by the Lake is provided by the Edinburgh Hotel Bar, serving a variety of lunch and dinner specials every day, including steak, seafood, Italian, pasta dishes, and more. They are located at 100 Meadville Street in downtown Edinburgh, Pennsylvania. Information can be found at 814-734-5103 or online at edinburghhotel.tripod.com. Check them out. That's where I was for this last game. Don't go there for the next game because it's not going to be able to be on TV because it's on Amazon Prime. So, yeah, big unfortunate there. But let's talk about special teams.
But go before and after.
Yeah, absolutely. Get some wings or something. Could be a good time. Jaylen Warren, 2 kick returns, 57 yards. He needs to be out there more. He's a pinball, man. Yeah. There was a couple times I thought he was going to break it. He's agile enough. He's quick enough. He can stay on his feet. I really hope we get to see more of him. Calvin Austin, 3 punt returns. Unfortunately, he did lose one of them to a fumble. That was actually right after that sack by Preston Smith, unfortunately. So that was sad. Chris Boswell, the highlight of the team, 1 for 1 on field goals, 2 for 2 on extra points. James, we have an interesting fact to share about him.
You do, Cody. What did you discover about this and what that meant for him all time as a Steeler?
Yeah, so he is the only player in Steelers history to now be named the NFL's leading scorer in a season. So he led the entire NFL in scoring this year. Not surprised with how many times we got to see him kick the ball. Wish we didn't see him kick the ball that many times, but that's fine. It is what it is. But Jay, as a fellow kicker, what does that mean for you and your kind?
Oh, it's just awesome. I mean, I've been a Boz fan forever, so I'm so happy every day that we stuck with him through his injuries and some of his plagues, seasons back in years past. And it seems like he is respected in the locker room a lot more than a lot of kickers are too. So he's a good guy to have around in a lot of different aspects.
Well, he went through a little bit of a hazing when he first got there, so happy he stuck around. I don't know if you guys saw that with the Debo stuff.
Oh, that was hilarious, man.
Man, that was a rough time. So for those of you that don't know that are watching, James Harrison, the former Defensive Player of the Year and defensive star for the Pittsburgh Steelers, monster that he is. Apparently his rookie year, if I'm not mistaken, he would stand over the holder and tell Chris Boswell that if you miss this kick, you're washing my back in the shower. So a little bit of a threatening time. They would sit in team meetings and Debo would just stare at him, sit right next to him and just stare at him, not even pay attention to what Coach Mike Tomlin was talking about. Fun times for him, for sure. Punter Corliss Waitman, 5 punts, 213 yards, 2 of them inside the 20. One was down deep inside the 20, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. I thought one went out in like the 4 or 5 yard line.
Could be. And I got to give him credit on one of those. He didn't cleanly catch the snap, but still was able to get it out there in front of him and get off a good punt. I thought for sure when I saw the replay of it, because it went so smoothly that I didn't even realize in real time what had happened. And when they showed it in the replay, he just kind of pushed it out there in front. He wasn't able to drop it like he normally did. And he still got off a clean, 45-yard punt.
It registered as a fumble for him. He has a fumble in the game. So
yeah, he recovered it and got it out there so quickly that nobody even was affected in the play in any way. So kind of impressive. Obviously, you don't want to see him drop it, but it's cool to see him keep his cool and still get the ball off in such a professional manner.
Oh, well, that wraps up talking about the game.
I have one stat I looked up if you guys want to hear.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so I was curious when we were talking about limiting Jamar Chase's impact, like how much we actually did do so. Mm-hmm. And he was averaging 9.8 yards per target this season, on the season as a whole. Do you guys want to take a guess on what we limited him to in yards per target in
yards
this game?
Per target, I'm going to guess. Hang on, let me do the math in my head. Probably 7.5.
6.9 yards per target. We held him to. So
nice.
Yeah. So that was a good job from our defenders, like rallying to the ball after he made the catch and not letting those big plays that their offense thrives off happen. So
yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Hey, you got to give credit to Corey Trice. He was matched up with him most of the game, right?
Yep.
And that goes exactly with what we were talking about with him being in position to get that tackle and not allow a lot of yards after catch.
Yep. Briefly, we're not going to go too far into depth with this. We'll talk about this more on next week's show, which will either be Thursday or Friday, or this week's show later in the week. Playoff bracket is out. Pittsburgh will face Baltimore as the number 6 seed going to the number 3 seed. There's pros and cons to that. We know them fairly well. The cons are they're playing pretty well. Lamar Jackson's having a decent year. Hopefully we can make something happen here. Obviously, the Los Angeles Chargers travel to Houston. Denver's going to travel to Buffalo, which is going to be an interesting game. Bo Nix is having himself a fairly good end of the year. And then on the NFC side, you have Minnesota traveling to the Rams, Washington traveling to Tampa, Green Bay traveling to Philly, and then respectfully on each side of the conference, Detroit and Kansas City are getting bye weeks. Realistically here, what's best case scenario for Pittsburgh, do you guys think, on a path to the Super Bowl with this playoff bracket?
Well, if you look at what, so obviously Pittsburgh has to win their game.
Yep.
Chargers versus Texans is kind of it doesn't really matter that much in my opinion.
Yep.
And you kind of figure Buffalo's going to beat Denver. So that would, I guess, put us versus Kansas City.
Yep.
In the second round.
Yeah.
So the only way we don't get Kansas City is if Denver somehow beats Buffalo.
That's not going to happen.
Which I agree with you guys. That's not likely to happen.
No.
So I mean, this is literally reality check for Pittsburgh, right? They've beaten Baltimore already this season. Can they beat them again? I don't see why they can't, but they definitely have to play better than they did last time.
Yeah.
No doubt about that. Kansas City, that's a huge, huge issue, and so is Buffalo. I'm not anywhere near as confident that they can pull off a victory against either one of those teams. But the only good thing is that when we played Kansas City, we did not have Joey Porter Jr. And we see now how much of a drastic impact that has on the defense. It is night and day how much better they are with Joey Porter Jr. out there. If Corey Trice can continue to develop, maybe there's a path. Maybe they can beat the Ravens, and by the time they see the Chiefs, Corey's got a little more confidence, and we can really slow down that juggernaut of an offense in Kansas City.
Yeah, and I think I'm excited to see in a hypothetical matchup with the Chiefs us off a full week of rest. Yeah. I think just with how veteran and how rhythmic our approach is for a lot of the guys on our team, the majority of our players are 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th year in the league, and they've already established their weekly routines. They already know what they need to do to get ready to play on Sundays, and they didn't play the Chiefs on Sunday. So I think having that routine and being able to face them with a full week of prep, with a full week of rest and recovery and training, I'm really excited to see how we match up to them in that sort of an aspect.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how the playoff bracket would look, but I do think that there's a chance that if we win and would go to Kansas City, that would be a Sunday game. I don't know exactly, again, how that's all looking or how that breaks down. Pittsburgh does play on Saturday this upcoming week, a Saturday night game at 8 o'clock against the Baltimore Ravens. Yeah, hoping for a win. Again, we're not going to go too far into that. There's many things to discuss. James, you want to talk about an injury real quick before we wrap up the show?
Yeah, if you noticed near the end of the game, you saw Spencer Anderson come in for Mason McCormick. That's because Mason McCormick had a hand injury. Turns out he broke that hand. Don't know if it's right or left. Like Tomlin said in his press conference today that he will be fitted for a cast and possibly a glove or like a club for it as well. And then he's going to see how he can participate throughout the week in practice as to whether or not he will play. So a little discouraging because if he is able to go, he's not going to be 100%. If he is not able to go, that puts Spencer Anderson at right guard, which I'm not as concerned about as I would like to have Spencer Anderson available to sub in for Sayamalu if he's having a bad game. So that just negatively impacts the depth there if he's unable to go. But Mason McCormick's pretty tough, so I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to play with it.
Yeah. With that being said, that's going to wrap up this recap show for the regular season. Again, James has something else.
No, you had a couple other topics you wanted to talk about.
Oh, I did. There was one other one.
Requesting an interview with Arthur Smith for head coach.
Yep.
And then
we talked about
you talked about the Boswell thing already,
yeah.
So we're good there.
Yeah, so very interesting to see that the Jets want to interview Arthur Smith for the head coaching job. That would change things drastically if he left, obviously. So we'll see what happens with that. Hopefully more news about that after the season, whether he's going to stay or go. Obviously, we'll get that. But again, we can't thank you guys enough for listening or watching if you're on YouTube. Remember to like and follow on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Subscribe, ring the bell. It's free. Doesn't cost you anything. Don't forget the 5-star reviews. Make James here very happy on Apple Podcasts. And until next time, this is your host, James and Cody, with special guest Jay, signing off.